Welcome to the Rewarded Consumer Podcast. My name is Michael, and I have a general passion to get more rewards out of my everyday financial activities. I wanted to share this passion with you to help give information on tools that can help get more out of these mundane everyday activities. I am joined today by a group of my friends who also have a similar interest.
Hey, I'm Pete. I'm here to learn and possibly even share useful experiences from my financial decisions as well.
Hi, I'm Stas. I have an interest in technology and finance, so let's explore this world together.
Hi, my name is Jan. I have a technical background, but would like to explore the thoughts that my friends have around financial aspects such as credit cards and other reward programs.
Hey, I'm Alex, aka AG. I'm a novice to cashback consuming, but I'm here to share my experiences and thoughts and hopefully ask some good questions.
Welcome to the Rewarded Consumer Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about savings accounts and how to approach them in the COVID economy. Today I'm joined with Pete, Alex, Stas, and Jan. Welcome to the podcast, guys. Let's talk about savings accounts. Right now, as we've seen with the COVID-19 pandemic, has made savings accounts go down to like basically next to nothing with maybe the big banks. Obviously this started pre-COVID-19 when the Feds lowered the interest rates, so everybody else is obviously following suit. And to begin with, brick and mortar never really did have any good interest rates. My general philosophy with bank accounts and specifically with savings accounts is you don't necessarily have to have them at your main bank. I don't think you should ever spread yourself too thin, but I don't think you should always say, I have to only be in like Chase or Bank of America or some online bank, everything in one place. I think sometimes it's nice to have two places so you can also, be a little bit flexible if rates change. That being said, I would always suggest having a brick and mortar bank. For me, I use Chase as a brick and mortar bank, and I keep, my basic banking, like, my direct deposits and all the basic stuff, and like pay credit cards from there. And then I use online savings accounts like Beam, and maybe try a new one out now with the way interest rates are going down, which I might talk about Vero in a little bit. That's my 2 cents. How about you, Stas? What do you think?
So pre-COVID, my main philosophy was brick and mortar because if anything happened, I want to be able to go to the bank locally, talk to someone, get my money out, do whatever I need to do. You never know when things will go out, your internet connection will go out, things happen. Although, as we've seen with this current pandemic, those places either discouraged people from coming in or had reduced hours, so that kind of made it hard to use anyway. So I don't really know how to decide best because there's pros and cons on both, and this situation kind of threw everything off for me.
From a savings standpoint, I'm actually using Wealthfront. When I opened originally my account, they used to have one of the highest APYs. I think at the time it was at 2.38 when I opened, and then since the pandemic started, definitely those rates started going down. So at this point, Wealthfront is offering 0.35 API, and obviously for savings accounts, for me, the API makes definitely a difference. So I was recently looking at other options, and Ally seems as a reasonable option at this point. They're offering a 1.1 APY at this point. They also have some nice features that help you organize your money within their savings account. They have a feature that's called buckets. So essentially you can create different buckets for different reasons that you want to save money. So for example, home improvements, down payments for either a car or a house or anything of that type. And then you can put your money in an organized way into those buckets. That's why I'm going towards Ally number one because of the APY being higher than my current bank, which is Wealthfront, and the bucket is definitely a nice feature of helping organize money.
How about you, Pete?
Yeah, I'm mainly using Chase and a local community credit union. And my rates were never that high because there's both brick and mortar and online half of it as well. So I am also considering looking into higher interest yielding savings accounts. The ones that you guys brought up do sound pretty good. I actually have looked into potentially putting into my savings account. I have an old Ally account, which I actually haven't used in a long time. That's kind of what I'm considering at the moment.
And Alex, you want to finish it off for us? What are you thinking?
Yeah. I've arrived at my banking setup probably in a somewhat unique way. I think So I didn't have like a bank account of any kind until I went to college, and the college that I went to was West Point. So the first bank that I ever worked with just in general was Pentagon Federal Credit Union, because they had a location right there on campus. But then after I started to, have more than just a little bit of money to play with, I eventually started working with USAA. And that has been sort of my bank for a long time now. The thing that's, I guess, interesting about USAA is that it's really mostly an online bank, but they operate a lot like a brick and mortar because that's sort of where they started. But since their clientele is mostly active duty military or veterans and people that are spread all over the place, they really sort of have a technology first kind of orientation. So I started out with USAA kind of having access to a lot of online features and the ability to do things remotely that you would normally want to use a brick and mortar bank for. One thing that USAA does is they make a lot of partnerships with banks that are more traditionally brick and mortar, so that if there are certain transactions that you need to go to a bank in order to do, or go to a physical location, they typically have a way for you to do those things at some other bank that's nearby, but still be ultimately using your USAA account. So I've used them for a lot of different things. And because they have really good customer service, I tend to give them the benefit of the doubt when I'm making a decision. But that's my primary bank. And then when it comes to other needs, like for instance, I own a small business and we needed some business accounts. Since USAA didn't provide that, we did a pretty extensive research and search for what banks to use for those. So I use BECU for my business banking. That's Boeing Employee Credit Union from up in Washington. And we're also actively looking at other online options to do certain things like line of credit. But, I've pretty much stuck with USAA as the personal banking for whatever I could use it for, just out of a knowledge that we're generally getting a pretty decent deal and appreciation for the level of service that they're able to provide, particularly to military members and veterans.
That's awesome. Now, one thing I did, which was kind of weird, and I set this up a while ago. I had to basically refer people into this bank in order to get 2% consistently. So I had to refer two people. So yeah, I referred my wife and my father. I used the easy ones to refer. And I was able to hold in the 2%. And the reason I did that is so I could, keep that interest rate at the 2%, which they're holding still to up to a certain point. I can only put so much in there for them to keep the 2%. I've dabbled a little bit with online, so that was one interesting thing. But right now I can't do much in there. So as part of our podcast today, I'm actually going to try out a new service. I'm reading up a little bit about Vero, and the reason I'm really interested in Vero is their basic earning is 1.21%, which is unheard of. But I mean, I have to make sure, the first thing you have to always make sure is they're FDIC insured, which they are. They also have free ACH transfers, which that's another big thing. I found out the hard way with Fifth Third. They're, trying to get money out of there. They wanted to charge me X amount of dollars for every $2,000 I transferred out or whatever. And I was just like, this is dumb. Why should I pay a bank to switch money in and out if I'm giving them the benefit of utilizing that money? So that's another thing you should look into. And then just what it takes to, what's the minimum you have to put in there. So it looks like a pretty good bank. So that's one thing I'm going to try out today. After this program today, I will actually, sign up. I'm going to use some of my rewards money from Swag Bucks. I have some money in there, and I'm just going to start it off. And what's cool is I actually found a deal where if I do it through a Swag Bucks sign up link, I can get $30 for opening a checking account with them, which just starts the whole process. I think it's kind of cool. This way, I'm still making better than what Chase is giving, which is next to nothing, and I'm going to make 1.21%. I have access to the bank account because basically the one big thing with the online accounts, it's all ATM driven. You just have to make sure that you have at least access to get your money out if you want to that way, or at least that free ACH transfer so you can transfer back and forth between your bank account and everything else. And liquidity, I think, is very important right now in these times. Because you never know how the economy is going to react to anything, and locking it up to maybe a CD or something like that right now, because the CD rates are nowhere near where they need to be. Might as well find a savings account that at least gives me something good where I can, if I need it on a quick whim, if I need to move it out and get it, do something, I got it there. I don't know. Anyone else have any thoughts on that whole thing about keeping a basic bank or not, or are you all ready to go into an online thing?
Well, one of the reasons why I like brick and mortar, so not all Chase banks and not all banks in general, but some of the branches offer a safety deposit box, which I know a lot of people don't even use or care about, but I still find useful every once in a while. Like, for example, when I was getting married, I would store the engagement ring in there, like until I was ready to actually propose with it. And maybe one of you guys know, like, is there another service that could replace that, or well, not necessarily a bank, but another place that would be a safe storage of small items.
And at a certain level too, Stas, you do get free services like a notary or something like that. I mean, who knows how that notary process is going to change or evolve from all this, but I'm assuming that there's still going to be human interaction at some point in certain processes. Services like that, can't replacing that with an online bank. They're just not going to offer that. I'm trying to think of another service that's just like more of a brick and mortar only offered service. Does anybody else have anything?
I know that there are some aspects of the deposit boxes with banks that, maybe your contents are not insured against, but I don't think that there's like an applicable service outside of what sort of your standard banks can provide.
Oh, I agree. I believe there's a lot of things there which, like, just because you can put something in a safety deposit box, it's not insured. It's just one of those things where if the worst happens and there's a break-in, what's more likely to be stolen? Something that's just sitting in your house behind some drywall walls that are easy to break into, or something else behind a vault that takes a lot more skill to get into.
Yep, exactly.
That's all by a risk reward, I guess we would say there. Well, and as I said, going back to the whole point, that's why it's good to have these local banking services and having like the traditional. I think I still have access to a safety deposit box. The problem is a lot of these banks are getting rid of the safety deposit box because people aren't using them as much. It's more the old school banks that are still still have those. And in reality, banks in general are kind of getting rid of a lot of services. So everyone's kind of going to this more online model. Like Chase, for instance, I know we love Chase here, I guess. But it's also very prevalent in the Midwest where most of us are from here. Because I think we all probably evolved from the Bank One back in the day. Yeah, so that's what I had in college. I had Bank One, and they were easy. They had locations near college and stuff like that. But they're not really even having tellers anymore. They just have these service representatives, and it's like a waiting room, and then you wait for someone to talk to. And it's like they have these little you're gonna sit at a booth, like a restaurant booth, and talk to them about your financials. Which it's a cool idea. The ATMs have evolved. Like you can get $1 bills out of there. My wife and I have gone to like the Chase ATM just to get $1 bills. We're like, wow, that's crazy. You don't have to get 20s anymore. You can get 1s and 5s and 10s, whatever you want. Which I think that's kind of cool. They're trying to make everything more digital. And with the Corona economy, we don't really want to have to touch money. Money is becoming kind of like, ugh. Like we don't want to actually physically touch the money. I think everything is pretty much digital. I mean, like going into a restaurant or whatever, I try to use tap as much as I can. Or I went to the brewery the other day to go pick up some kombucha, and I used tap with a square tap and just like tap my phone, and I was able to pay for it. And that's just another digital realm, because in reality, most of our money is all digital. I mean, yes, we have to financially back it up with physical, money, but I think with Corona and then with the general trend that was going on before then, I think everyone's kind of going to more digital. But what that opens up is, the opportunity, like, well, if we're all going more digital, is it time to rethink how we, do we do our savings accounts at a different place than we put our checking account? Because checking account, you probably want something more local. And then the savings account, it doesn't matter. You just need something that's quick and easy to be liquid. That's my thought on that. Anyone else?
Mike, it's actually kind of funny that you brought up both being more digital, but then you were also bringing up cash on the same hand of that. So it's kind of, I know that we heard about, I don't know if you saw this, but certain countries were even burning their physical money just to like get rid of any kind of traces of contamination, I guess. I haven't been seeing that recently, but I saw that at the beginning of all this. So it's interesting that on one, hand, you talked about going more digital, but you were also talking about getting physical cash out. Is there going to be a new medium? I mean, is it going to evolve into something else?
I don't think Corona is a big deal when it comes to this, in the sense that, yes, today it is, but this country has been going on for like centuries, and this is just a small part of that. We're going to get over it. At some point, there'll be a vaccine, whether it's this year, next year, in 2 years. I don't know how long it'll take them to make it, but it'll happen at some point, and after that, it won't matter. So I don't think it's as big of an issue there. Plus, realistically, even if it is an issue, why don't we just follow the example of Canada and I believe Australia and make plastic money that you can literally put in your laundry machine? But I think it's more of an issue of even before this, people wanted to go online. Like I know me, I rarely carry cash because between credit cards and tap, you rarely need it. But at the same time, I think there are situations where you might want to use cash, either one, because the store might offer you a discount for using cash for whatever reason, or two, in general, maybe there's something you want to buy without your significant other knowing about it. Not necessarily in a bad way, but maybe it's a surprise or something. I don't know.
No, it's definitely a good thing. We used to have a local restaurant that would only do cash. They had an ATM machine. It was this local Greek restaurant that did cash only, but because of the coronavirus and them having to change their business model, they started doing like electronic payments, which was interesting. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see. I don't think money's ever gonna go away. I just think it's gonna be not as prevalent. It's not like I think it was already starting to kind of not be as prevalent. I think you're right. It's gonna be for that special circumstance. I mean, some people will still prefer just to pay their friends. Yeah, here, I'm gonna give you a 20 instead of, and some people prefer just having cash because you know it's like it gives you this like it's more of an emotional thing because if you have $100 in your hands and every time you give it up, you're giving away something. It's more meaningful than this quick transaction number than when you do it on a credit card. So that I think it's a it can be psychological.
Yeah, but it's also just a matter of what people have access to and what their actual economic condition is, because there are, I mean, I think for, a group such as us, we could realistically see, having all of our transactions be through banks and online and all of this type of thing. But, some people who are in our same type of circumstance or age group and everything, they may not have access to the internet outside of their cell phone if they even have that. They may not have a bank account. There are literally people who are adults with kids and jobs and don't actually have bank accounts still and still make money through cash transactions or get their basic necessities through cash transactions, or more community based in terms of how they handle their finances and stuff like that. So if you think about, the US being sort of the pioneering country of the internet, we're not the country with the highest percentage of people who have regular access to the internet. I think that's still somewhere between 80 to 90% for us. So there is a decent amount of people who really do not engage with online banking or sort of the online purchasing ecosystem as much as like we do. It's perfectly normal in day to day for us, but still doesn't apply to everyone. And, I know people just within my family and friend group that pretty much don't do any type of banking online or anything like that. So there's still going to be that population.
That's a good point, and not just people that are in our age group, like you were saying, but I know I've worked with some elderly people that it's not that they can't afford it or it's not available to them, it's that they don't even know how to use it. They were never taught in school or otherwise, so for them it's just easier just to use money or cash than to have to always call their grandson every 5 minutes.
I definitely agree with all your points, guys, but from my standpoint as somebody who actually travels constantly, obviously when Corona wasn't here, I was traveling up to 85% of the time. So when you're on the go, all you care about is being able to manage your money online because you don't have time to go to the bank, because while you travel, you actually work with the clients all the time during normal business hours. So having the freedom of doing banking online, that's a huge thing for me. And I honestly don't remember the last time I've been to an actual bank to do anything. If they're actually going to open the first Chase in a few months here where I live. So I've been doing banking online for many, many years now.
Well, and one thing I've noticed, Chase, where I live, is they're actually closing down locations. It's because they overextended themselves. I think they also bought like a couple of different banks, and now either these locations are turning into a nail salon, which I thought was kind of odd, or they're just turning into another like local like community bank, which is cool. And I think there's a lot to be said. I think it has to do with people's comfortability with it, and I don't think we're ever going to be 100% comfortable with like everything digital. And I get that. I think there is something to be said about having the physical copy, like always get it in writing. It's a little hard. I think some people are not quite up there, and I think based on people's comfortability. I mean, right now, I always kind of want to consistently involve myself and keep trying out the new stuff I can just to kind of so I have an understanding of it. And that's part of what I'm going to try to do with this podcast is try out new products for you guys and give you my personal opinion. I also hope my panelists will try the same thing out so we can give like an objective opinion on it. Obviously, some of it's going to be, it is an opinion, so it's a personal preference. But as I said, I haven't had a good interest rate lately, so I think what I'm going to do with the ending of this podcast, I'm going to set up a new Vero account, see how it goes, and then by the time we do the next podcast, I can give you guys an objective view of it. I'm going to see what the pros and cons are. And as I said, because they have certain things like free ACH transfers, it should be pretty easy to go back and forth with. And that's one thing that as I said, you have to look at all the little things like FDIC insured, ACH, and all the little details just to make sure you're going to be in good shape instead of having to always be dependent on, oh, there's a fine here or there. You don't ever want to have to pay money to access your money. And that's one thing that I would agree on. Does anyone else disagree with that statement?
No, I agree with that, Mike.
Spot on, yeah.
And I know, Mike, this was not part of our podcast, but just part of our weekly talks. And, we were just talking about how even some people are using some of the stock services now with free transaction fees. So even more than banking, but hopefully earning extra income or, retirement or all that is a little bit like less of a buy-in amount for certain people, because people might have been thrown off by extra fees and all that beforehand.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, Alex made a good point. Not everyone's going to have access to those services, and people probably still do pay for fees. Like some people will go to like services that will charge them to even cash a check. And, I think as a country, we need to make sure that everyone has access, to a bank account. I think that's just one thing that hopefully in the next couple of years that we don't have to, even think about that. I would like to thank everybody for joining us at the podcast. In the coming weeks, we will produce more rewarding content and hopefully give you even more reviews on these services we talked about and have even more rewarding content to be talking about. So thanks for joining us tonight and have a good one.